Joining us now in the studio to discuss the aftermath of the Temple Mount crisis is Knesset Member Sharren Haskel from the Likud Party. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, so, we're now hearing these reports that Iran was sending aid to help fuel the Temple Mount crisis. Now, what could this mean for the future of Israeli-Palestinian relations and Iran's role as a whole in this conflict?
Well, Iran has been sending out proxies. It's got proxies all around the Middle East and actually in more countries as well.
Yeah, which we'll get to after
this answer. And so, they have the front in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They are right in the middle of the war in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. And we know that they are funding and they are assisting Hamas as well. This is another proxy that they are trying to build and create. Unfortunately, many are using religion as a cover-up for terrorism, with everything that we've been seeing and hearing of what has been happening on the Temple Mount, where 2 police officers were murdered. Police officers who were maintaining the status quo in one of the most difficult and holiest sites in the world. And so by using I think abusing some of the religious rights in the name of religion, they're actually covering up for terrorist activities.
Well, what I'd like to ask you is, we see these polls coming out. 77% of the Israeli public is unhappy with, the Israeli government's move to remove these metal detectors and the security measures, although it has restored calm. What is your take on this? What is the implication? What is the aftermath of having kind of given in to these protests?
Well, I don't think it was giving in. There was a lot of international pressure. The Prime Minister did a cold decision, understanding all of the aspects of the decision that he needs to make. He made a decision at first with any kind of reports or consequences that he knew that are going to happen, and chose to put those metal detectors. That was important to do because we need, first of all, to make sure that the status quo and law and order is being maintained on the Temple Mount. The decision of taking them out was a cold and strategic decision with a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister. I support him in the decision. Unfortunately, it might bring some wind to some extremists who thinks that because of these protests, that's what happened. It's not because of these protests, but because of a lot more reasoning that is coming behind it as well. And I think that even Abbas had realized that with the international community, the Arab community all around the world, and what Iran has been doing with those demonstrations, trying to hijack and trying to push Hamas and other extremist organizations that are supported by Iran into Abbas territories. And he understands how dangerous it is for him as well.
It's interesting that you say that he understands that, because you would think that there may be some sort of appreciation for what was taking place, but it seems that Abbas is trying to move away from the fact that Iran had kind of reached its tentacles out and gone into the middle of this conflict. Now, you mentioned before that this isn't the only source of support that Iran is providing. There are other countries that Iran is also reaching out to as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We can take in Europe, we can go to South America as well. They have now, I think, about 80 cultural center. What are these cultural centers? These are Iranian Muslim cultural centers. They bring imams, they bring religious authorities there, and they preach to Islam. They convert people in all of these countries, all of these regions towards Islam. They just opened one in Cuba. There wasn't even one single Muslim in Cuba. Then after they opened, there were 2. Then 5, and now I think it's about 9 Muslim people in Cuba. Why would they open an Iranian cultural center in Cuba if it's not to try and send more tentacles towards South America? We know some activities had happened as well in the past in North America as well, but we know that the arms trade and weapons and everything that's been happening there in Central and South America is increasing, particularly also because Iran is turning it into one of their proxies as well.
Interesting. Well, turning to a completely different topic, I understand that you yourself actually just won the Liberty Index Award here in Israel. Can you tell us about what that means?
Yeah. Well, the Liberty Index counts parliament members' votes and legislations that are mainly to do with economical freedom, economical liberties, coming from more of a capitalistic approach, economical approach, and civilian as well. And so this is the fourth time in a row that I'm nominated for the first place with the most votings and the most legislations that support that agenda.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. And,
Thank you very
we'd like
much.
to thank you so much for coming in. Hopefully we'll have you back again. Knesset Member Sharren
Thank you very
Haskel.
much.